So you think about a child 7 or 8 years old, and they have an opportunity to be in a choir. A lot of the schools in our area have maybe 15 or 20 different cultures and languages spoken. And so the parents from all those different cultures come together in the cafeteria on an evening to watch their children shine. And their kids are standing there waving at mom and dad. It provides that sense of community and celebrating. It's not about competition, and to see their children engaging with each other.
Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. Our purpose and passion are simple: to highlight the incredible nonprofits that make our communities stronger. Each episode is a chance for these organizations to tell their story in their words, sharing not just what they do, but why it matters to the people they serve, to their supporters, and to all of us who believe in the power of community. Through podcasting, we hope to amplify their voices, inspire connection, and give them one more tool to impact the hearts of donors, partners, and neighbors alike. This work is made possible through the generous support of our incredible partners: Cap Trust, offering fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations; Western Health Advantage, a local not-for-profit health plan that believes healthcare is more than coverage. It's about caring; CORE, executive leadership and comprehensive support services. They work in it so you can work on it. And Five Star Bank, a local, trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. What happens when a city decides the arts aren't extra? They're essential. This episode, I meet with Allison Cagley, the founding force behind Friends of Sacramento Arts, an organization on a mission to restore arts and music education in every public school across our region. And when I say restore, I mean rebuild what was lost decades ago. We talk about the long arc of advocacy, from the impact of Prop 13 to the game-changing opportunity of Prop 28, and what it really takes to move policy, funding, and school systems towards something that feels so obvious: every child deserves access to arts and music. Allison shares how this small but mighty organization has navigated pandemic pivots, statewide partnerships, and bureaucratic complexity, all in pursuit of one bold vision: arts every day for every child in every school. This conversation isn't just about creativity. It's about confidence, community, graduation rates, workforce development, and the simple, powerful movement when a child realizes, I made that. This is a story for the future of Sacramento: its culture, its workforce, its vibrancy. This episode recognizes the impact of the arts in our classrooms and its effect in our community. Allison Cagley, welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to speak with you because you're one of the organizations I wasn't familiar, not that there's not many I'm unfamiliar with,
Sure.
but there's such a tight arts community. And knowing that there's somebody that's really advocating for art in the schools is not only impressive, but so necessary.
It is. And I grew up before Prop 13, when we still had arts and music in public schools. And when that happened, that money was taken away. And so we have generations of children that have never had arts and music on a regular basis in their classroom. And Mayor Steinberg, Darrell Steinberg, when he was mayor, he was working with Dennis Mangers, who is a local arts patron and leader in our community. And they worked together to do an audit and analysis of the creative economy and arts and culture in Sacramento. Back in 2018, a lot of focus groups, a lot of town hall meetings and analysis. And out of that came what's called the Creative Edge Culture Plan. And it's a plan that's housed at the city, but the number one goal is restoring arts ed in K-12 public schools, because without that beginning, you don't have future creatives and you don't have future patrons of the arts.
Which is a double-edged sword.
Exactly.
Because then there's no consumption, there's no contribution. And we know that our cities thrive on the arts in so many ways.
It does. You know, you think about when major employers come into a city to look to see if they will develop or not, they want to see what the quality of education is for their employees' families, what's the vibrancy that their employees will be attracted to come to Sacramento. And we don't pretend to be San Francisco or LA, that we are thriving and a vibrant culture and arts community on our own.
Yeah, and that's so significant because they do look at all those elements, and culture is one of them.
Exactly.
And that's a strike if you haven't got much culture or
Right.
opportunity for the arts.
Well, and you know, not only building future creatives that want to stay here, they are educated here, they might go away to further education, but then to come back and reinvest in the arts here. And, you know, Greta Gerwig is an example of one who grew up here in Sacramento and came back and has been a part of the community still with her wonderful movie-making experience.
And we have another gentleman that passed through Sac State that is also an Academy Award nominee, whose name escapes me at this point in time. But
Yes,
I
well,
believe the movie was Sinners.
there's been so many that have and then come back again
Yes.
to whether it be fine arts and painting and sculpture or with performing arts.
So tell me a little bit about the organization. And you mentioned Prop 13, but there's also another proposition that's really significant
Right.
in your sphere of influence.
Right. So when we started in 2019, we had a board of about 14 people, and we were partnered with the Community Foundation, Sacramento Community Foundation, and Sacramento County Office of Education and the city to really partner to look at policy reform and education reform in the public schools in Sacramento County. And so we started with that part of it and really looked at how do we change permanent funding? So we weren't looking at how do we fundraise and sponsor buses for field trips, because while that's wonderful, it's not a permanent change in equitable access to comprehensive arts curriculum. And when we talk about our mission statement, equitable access and comprehensive are key words that we focus on. So it's not have an assembly or go to a field trip and you can check the box. That's not enough. It needs to be equal to the other subject areas that children are being taught, especially in the K-8 area.
Mm-hmm.
So we think about when children go into high school, they're required to have arts and humanities and music for graduation requirements. But if they've never had it in K-8, there's no affinity or interest or comfort level to say, oh, I'm going to pick up a flute at 14. Well, maybe not.
Right.
So they need to have that introduction early.
So tell me a little bit about your launch, so to speak, because it was 2019. Something happened in 2019 and 2020,
Yes.
which was the pandemic. And here you are starting a nonprofit organization about arts, which many are performing, which
Right.
means nothing's happening. What was that like?
Well, we did some pivoting in 2019. We decided when we saw that outside arts groups had lost their contracts with schools for on-site arts education because of COVID, we went ahead and were able to fund about 20 teaching artists for them to digitize their art form and be able to provide that virtually. And a great example of that is Milton Bowens, who had been in Sacramento many years. He's now in Atlanta and has grown. He had a wonderful gallery for middle school students in the Twin Rivers district, and every seventh grader went through it, and it was merging art with civil rights and social justice messaging. It was a wonderful. But then when they closed, they couldn't use it. So he provided a docent-led video curriculum. And so that way both the children and their families could enjoy that art form during COVID. So that was one way we did it. The other part was just building relationships. So understanding with patience and grace all of the challenges that public school districts face, but how do we keep being grace-filled but tenacious in our messaging of how the arts, both with curriculum as well as social-emotional benefits, help the schools solve problems. So whether it's truancy or graduation rates, the arts can be part of that solution.
I know one of your website posts is something to the effect of art for every student in every school. How are we doing?
It's a long road.
Of course,
And
right.
not one size fits all. Some districts are well on their way and have their district leadership has well embraced the importance of arts education at a K-12 level. Some are still working on it. We build the relationships with both the parent side of a school district through our partnership with PTA and other parent groups, and then also at the school district level to educate and inspire the school board members to take fiscal responsibility for providing that arts education. So it's through those long-term relationships. And you mentioned Prop 28. So Prop 28 for us was a real game changer. Two things that happened in about 2021. We became partnered with Create California, which is a statewide arts education advocacy organization based in Pasadena. And we became the local regional voice to get Prop 28 on the ballot, very grassroots, out there at events with a clipboard, getting signatures. And Prop 28, which is the Arts and Music in Schools law, is 1% Prop 98, which is part of the general fund. So it's permanent funding, regardless of who's in office, for schools. And it was written in part with Austin Butner, who was the former LA Unified superintendent.
So we have permanent funding. Is that funding optional for the school districts? Is that why it isn't everywhere automatically?
Yes, it is optional. You know, it couldn't have come at a worse time that it was passed in 22. So here we are with schools just coming back into on-person.
In-person, right.
And, you know, during all that time that I call it the great resignation, great retirement of the school education system. So, for instance, you know, one school district, 40% of their principals were brand new.
Wow.
So trying to initiate Prop 28's funding while they're dealing with learning loss and trauma. And the paperwork that, of course, in public education is always there, that the school districts have to fill out and complete to use the funds correctly and to be accountable for it.
Of course, there's some bureaucracy to it, which I can see slowing everything down.
It does. It does. And there sometimes is not a clear communication between a district level leadership and the individual principals I had one principal ask me, "Oh, do we get this money every year?" And I'm like, "Yes."
Technically in perpetuity. It's
yeah,
there.
it is in
It's law.
perpetuity. And the way it was designed, not to get too much into the weeds, is they get a new amount every year, but they have up to 3 years to spend it. So that's not a use it or lose it every year. So, for instance, at the end of this school year, in June 30, is when they have to report how much they've used the last 3 years in Prop 28 funds with both new teachers, new programs, new materials. Otherwise, they do have to turn back some of that money if they haven't used it up in 3 years.
And it would certainly seem now that the awareness of 2022, we're 4 years out,
Right.
that they're starting to recognize they're settled in a little bit with their responsibilities. And they can say, okay, I see now where I can use this funding. And I would imagine, yes, it's sadly over time. It doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't. Well, and we've talked both at the statewide level and the regional level. It is so important for a school district to have a strategic plan for arts education. So it's not a scattershot reactionary aspect to how to use the money. And so there are a lot of the larger districts that have directors at the district level that manage the arts education for every school. And so they'll have a 3 to 5 year plan so they can see how regular funds, how Prop 28 funds and other funds can all drive how many hours a day or hours a week a child will get arts and music in their classroom.
Well, it's wonderful that you were able to be a part of the advocacy to move it forward. And again, such a small organization getting involved in an advocacy movement, that's a lot of involvement and engagement and time.
Yeah, it's a lot. You know, I think about my own career path has been a lot in fund development and marketing, and it has the same skill set.
Yeah.
And it's about building relationships and listening. And one of the things I like to do, whether it's an elected official or a school board member, is I first ask them, So what's your experience been recently with arts or music? Have you attended a concert? Did you play an instrument in school? We were doing a donor cultivation event in the early days, and a gentleman came up and he was an attorney, and he came up with tears in his eyes, and he said, "I remember playing the drums for Little Drummer Boy." And then he wrote a big check. So
Good stewardship.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but it's getting people to see the universality of arts and music in their own lives, and how without it, children's lives are just so empty.
Yes. You mentioned a couple of organizations. I want to drill down a little further on
Sure.
the collaborative elements. Obviously, the school systems are very collaborative because you're engaged. That's where you
Right.
exercise the program. Who else do you work with? What other organizations might be part of the collaboration to carry this message forward or involve different areas of the education system that you work with?
So there's a number of them. We do have a partnership with Create California, which I mentioned before is a statewide arts ed. And with them, it's interesting because they're based in Pasadena, and a lot of their leadership and work has been either Bay Area or LA. And that's an area that we want to change from this location. PTA, California PTA is a partner with us. In fact, the head of the California PTA, Josiah Katanga, is on our board. And we've been doing regional virtual workshops and messaging out to the PTAs in the 3rd District, which is about 6 counties in this region. We also, of course, work with County Office of Education, both the Sacramento one, Placer and El Dorado. And then we also work with individual arts organizations that are providing school-based arts programs to help them navigate through the plethora of vocabulary that a public education system has, and to help them understand what contracts might look like, how to spend Prop 28, how do they fit into the Prop 28 formula for a school district to take advantage of that.
That makes sense because I can only imagine the nuance of everything as you start to drill down and say, okay, where does this
Yes.
money apply?
Yes.
And can I do X, Y, or Z?
And then we also work with the Department of Education. So one of our former board members knows the superintendent of public education well. And so we've had a couple meetings with him as well, because just getting the staffing adequate at the state level to answer the questions at the district level is really important. The other organization we work with is the California County Superintendents Association. And so, as you know, there's 58 counties in California. And so there are 58 county Office of Education offices that are located. So they have a person focused just on arts education at that association.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
Right.
That at least you have a go-to person that can help facilitate once you get
Yes.
into the system so
Right.
that they can navigate and get you where you need to go.
Exactly. Yeah.
'Cause that's-
And we also work with, because of Create California's partnership, we work with a similar organization in the Bay Area, one in Sonoma, one in Fresno. And so there's a whole network of those of us that are working in this arena.
We'll be right back with more from Allison Cagley of Friends of Sacramento Arts right after these messages of support from those who bring us this program.
I'm James Beckwith, President and CEO of Five Star Bank. We're dedicated to supporting nonprofit organizations who advocate for the strength, resilience, and vitality of those they serve. When nonprofit organizations thrive, our community does too. By supporting the Nonprofit Podcast Network, Five Star Bank is amplifying the voices and meaningful impact of our nonprofit community. We're Five Star Bank, a trusted nonprofit partner. How can we help you?
We are really excited to be part of the family and contribute to the work that you all are doing. CORE provides fractional and interim executive services, along with comprehensive back office solutions that go into our client sites and do the work to give them the capacity they need in order to move through transitions, whether that's planned or unplanned. Or companies also work with our accounting and finance, back office solutions, human resources, technology, and administration. The reason why our back office solutions add value is because we save them time and money, anywhere from 20 to 30% of what they would spend on that back office solution. We work in it so they can actually work on it. CXORE.com and contact me directly at teat@cxore.com.
If you're interested in learning more about how CORE may help your organization, visit cxore.com.
Hello, this is Scott Thomas with Cap Trust in our Sacramento office. I specialize in working with local nonprofits and associations. Annually, we survey private and public nonprofit organizations across the country to better understand challenges they see in today's environment. In our more recent survey, we heard concerns about proper board governance, mission-aligned investment, and how to implement alternative investments. If you would like a copy of the survey or to discuss your organization, look me up, Scott Thomas at captrust.com.
At Western Health Advantage, healthcare isn't just a service. It's a shared value. As a nonprofit leader, you need a health plan that understands the importance of mission-driven work. Western Health Advantage is a local, not-for-profit health plan that supports organizations like yours with affordable, flexible coverage options for your team. But what truly sets them apart is their commitment to community, supporting nonprofits like the American Heart Association, Sacramento Ballet, and the Crocker Art Museum's Pay What You Wish Sundays. With access to top-tier providers and dedicated local support, Western Health Advantage is more than a health plan. It's a partner in your purpose. Explore your options today at westernhealth.com. Western Health Advantage, healthcare with heart, designed for those who give back. How are you funded?
Well,
And
we are small but mighty.
The expectation is not that you're going to give me millions here,
Yes.
because I know this is something that you are really driving with the support of community leadership.
It is. Yeah. Up until July, I was the only staff person. I contracted out my bookkeeping and social media, but otherwise it was me, myself, and I.
Yes.
And then we did hire a half-time person in July, and then I became half-time because of budget, although, I'm not necessarily working half-time. But we are completely independent nonprofit. We earn money, raise money through private individuals, some corporate support, and grants that are more for general operating grants, the California Arts Council or the city. And then we have an annual fundraising event in March.
Okay. So that's every March is your event. I think it's the Heroes event of
Yeah.
Yes.
So Heroes of Arts Education event, came up with that 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago now. And it had multi-levels of purpose. One of them was, of course, to raise money. The other one, I really felt like arts and music teachers are not recognized and honored the way they should be. And I just remember from my own experience that arts and music teachers have such a special relationship with their students, and the nurturing and the seeing the children is so special, and they're not recognized enough for that. The other part was to design an event to bring all the different caregivers that are concerned about quality education for school children. And so whether it's a city council member, it's a school board member, it's an employer, it's a community leader, it's parents, it's teachers, all to come every year to the Sophia and honor outstanding arts teachers. And for some of them, last year when we did it, there were a few teachers that they were retiring that year. And so this was their capstone, so to speak, to be honored in front of a couple hundred people. Superintendent Thurman came and spoke. And so it's a great, very happy celebration.
You certainly have the engagement of the right people. Just
Yes.
listening to the names and the organizations and the government entities that are involved, it's amazing that you've done this in just 5-6 short
7
years
yeah.
by yourself,
Yes.
so to speak. I mean, it's early 2026, 2019.
Yes,
so
right.
And 2 years of a pandemic in there too.
I know, exactly. Well, it takes patience. I think part of it is, and this past year when we were doing year-end giving, the 3 words we really thought about that defined us was about educate, advocate, invest. And invest has a very future, long-term relationship embedded, I think, in that instead of a fast buck.
Right.
And so how do we invest in the children that are in school today and the children that are in school 10 years from now? Because we know it's a long road to get where we want to get. So there is patience in educating and advocating and calling to action the decision makers about arts and music. And one of the board meetings I was at, they were presenting their strategic plan, which was so exciting. And the chair of the board started singing a song, De Colores, and he said, I was interested in learning Spanish because I learned that song in kindergarten.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes. So just those touchstones of how universal arts and music is to our lives.
You had to feel like, I've got this taken care of with that sort of a performance, so to speak, right?
Hopefully, yes, hopefully, yeah. But it takes tenacity and patience and gentle patience.
Which is a great segue to this next question, which is the dream, the vision. You've got a theater arts, performing arts, a big philanthropic arts fanatic who says, Allison, I want to give you a huge check to do whatever you need to do with the organization to get this into the schools. What would it look like? What would you do?
I would want to expand into Northern and Central California. I know talking to the person that was in charge of the Arts Initiative program with California County Superintendents is that the rural counties are in their own special, unique challenges. They don't have, a 20-minute drive to see a professional ballet at their disposal. So and some of them are very small, Butte County. Some of them have, one school districts. And so we want them all to win at this campaign. And so how do we help them figure out training and bringing in teaching artists, how to recruit a newly credentialed arts teacher up to their districts? So we'd love to have representation and working up to the Oregon border for that kind of thing, to really look at how do we penetrate every county.
And we know so well that every child at such a young age, that exposure is so critical.
Oh.
It's there. It's in all of them.
Yes.
It was in all of us until we were taught it out.
Well, yeah, you think about a toddler that see it on Instagram or TikTok.
And you see them moving and dancing.
Moving around.
Yes.
Or they take a crayon to the wall. In fact, I had a booth at Race for the Arts a few years ago, and this woman came up to me, and she had been a kindergarten teacher in the 50s, and she said that every kindergarten teacher had a piano and a guitar, and they were required to know how to play them. So what happened?
Right.
It's just so sad that some of the teach to the test kind of thing that happens versus how to heal and teach the whole child. And again, going back to having the arts and music in the classrooms on a regular basis helps lower truancy rates, increases graduation rates. I was interviewing a couple kids at McClatchy a few years ago, and they said, the only reason I come to school is my drama class. And so if that keeps them engaged and going to school, then why doesn't every school have it?
Whatever it takes, right?
Because not every kid is going to be on the football team or on the debate team. And so if the kids are in a ceramics class or a choir and they feel seen and valued and they build the teamwork and the importance of practice and communication that every employer requires, regardless of what industry it is. It's a balance between thinking that we're providing arts and music for a specific career path versus we are providing it because it's what makes us whole.
Correct.
Regardless if they become an engineer or a doctor or, a garbage truck driver. It's a balance between career path. Because of my work with Broadway Sacramento, a lot of the interns that come through have arts education in schools and then are doing internships during the summer.
Arts is a creative application, whereas if we stay linear, they aren't exposed the same way. So just an exposure to the arts could make you a better engineer or computer programmer or construction
music
worker.
increase math skills.
There we go.
Because music is math.
Allison, when you visit schools, surely you have the opportunity to see some of the arts in action. And I think one of the things that maybe people aren't picking up or don't see if they haven't been exposed, but if they have been, they recognize it, is what that brings to that student. And STEM has now added the A to STEAM, and there's a creative element that comes from the arts that maybe makes you a better engineer because you think differently, or a better mechanic, or a better performer in whatever that category you choose to pursue. When you see it in the schools, what does that look like?
So you think about a child 7 or 8 years old, and they have an opportunity to be in a choir. And the choir teacher and their fellow students come together, and they're going to do a concert. And a lot of the schools in our area have maybe 15 or 20 different cultures and languages spoken. And so the parents from all those different cultures come together in the cafeteria on an evening to watch their children shine. And their kids are standing there waving at mom and dad. And it provides that sense of community and celebrating their child being, it's not about competition. It's not about win or lose. It's a sense of being the we together. And to help parents feel more welcome into a school environment and to see their children engaging with each other and being a part of that school family.
And we all know those little kids just beaming in the performance where they're the banana, you know, or the most off-key little child singing. But that's not what's important. Exactly.
Well, and I remember when talking to Milton Bowens, the visual artist, and he said, isn't it wonderful that a child can bring home a picture that they've drawn, and the parent puts it up on the refrigerator, and it sits there for months, or they still have it, like I have some of my kids' artwork, and it shows how proud they are of their child's engagement. And again, it's not about competition or who's better than or not. It's just about the shining of and the celebrating of their child's creativity.
I think that's so special. That's something we cannot lose.
Exactly.
We just can't. That's self-esteem. That's confidence. That's character. It's all those things.
Right, which I think, you know, my kids were in sports, and sports are great, but there is that win or lose pressure. And in arts and music, there isn't necessarily a win or lose. It's about participation and celebration.
Well, and self-expression. This is me.
Exactly. Me. All uniqueness of me.
I love it.
Yes.
Well, that discipline and practice is so critical as you mention it. And you get that through some of the other programs. You do get it through the arts, but it just has to be there for them to experience it.
Exactly.
And choose.
Exactly.
And to your point, we see a lot of these students who that is the only existence. They're not going to be scholars or authors, but they're really great performers or really great singers or great musicians.
Right.
Why do we want to lose that?
Yes. Well, and then they also become the future patrons. So if they decide not to do that as a paid career, they become future patrons of it. And in performing arts, there's so many job opportunities, not just on stage, but the science of lighting and sound
all around it,
and set design. And so lots of different ways that they can express their creativity.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Back to reality now.
Back to reality.
We're not in across the state in the Central Valley.
Yes.
What's the greatest need you see today?
Well, besides money.
Yes. But it is one of them.
I think it's, again, I kind of go back to the word patience. You know, we're dealing in a very unique situation in our world right now and in the United States. And there's so much competing media to bring us down or to challenge us or to make us fearful. And the socioeconomic aspects, you know, only 2 school districts in Sacramento County are increasing their student population. All the other ones are decreasing, which ties to funding. And so we have a long game. So the need is for patience and, again, tenacity in communicating. Money is always a need. That's, you know, in a nonprofit sector, that's always the need. But I think it's building that communication network and empowering people to talk about the arts and music in the different areas of their lives.
I was going to say, and we have the funding. We have the funding through Prop 28 to say there's money here for the school. The funding is really for the organization, for Friends of Sacramento Arts, to get out and keep telling that story, to support the schools, to know it exists.
So I think part of the other need, which we don't have the authority to change, is for the Department of Education to adequately staff the implementation of Prop 28. Because in the very beginning, there was no 1 or 2 people assigned to the implementation. And so school districts at all levels had lots of questions, lots of deer in the headlights of how do we do this? We don't want to get our hands slapped if we do it wrong because of our litigious society. And so I won't do it at all because I don't want to get in trouble.
Well, do it wrong and not get reimbursed, that's a real problem.
Right. Well, they get the money ahead of time, so it's not
Okay.
a reimbursement.
Good
But
to know.
they don't want to have to turn it back. So I think it's also putting pressure on Department of Education to say, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We need to make sure it works, and we want to equip our school district leaders and the finance departments, all the people that touch the money in a school district, on how to adequately manage the money and report back out how the money has been spent.
When you take your story, which you have been eloquent in description with all the details, to a school or to a community, how do you explain the impact? How do you gauge the success of the program to date?
What's the before and after? So, for instance, as a part of our Heroes event, we give honorariums to all the teachers. And intentionally, we don't give the honorarium at the event. We give it at a school board meeting. So after the event, we visit each school district, and last year it was 12 in 4 counties, and it gives us our, 5 or 10 minutes of fame in front of the school board. And so Esparto was one example, little tiny 900 students, and they were able to hire through Prop 28 a halftime music teacher for their elementary school. So it's that before and after. What did they not have that they have now? Elk Grove has been able to work with Jim Tabucci of the Mandarin Drum and Bugle Corps, and through some of that Prop 28 funding have been able to provide bands at, I think, 40 schools. So
that's a big
in
deal.
part because of Prop 28.
Yes.
So it's that before and after aspect. And they're actually, because the Department of Education and then working with Create California, there is a database that you can access and look by county and by district and by school how much money has been spent and what they did with it. How many teachers did they hire? How many programs did they add? How many instruments did they buy? That sort of thing. And, the other long-term challenge is there's not enough credentialed art teachers. So that's another arm of our advocacy, is how do we help increase the number of credentialed teachers ready for the pipeline that is available. Whew. A lot. It's a lot.
There are a lot of pieces
There's
to
a lot
bring
of
it
pieces.
together.
It's not an easy fix.
Now, back to your point earlier, it's a long game.
It's a long game. It's a long game. Yeah, Dennis Mangers, when he first invited me to join this rodeo, he said it took, 40 years to kill it. It's going to take 40 years to make it.
Right.
But I do know that one of the visual and performing art directors at one of the large districts, I asked her in a meeting, I said, is Prop 28 even worth it? And she said, I've waited my whole life for this opportunity. So yes, it's complicated, but it's so worth it.
You are all in. There's no doubt about it. You are a one-person machine out there now with a little bit of support, fortunately.
Yeah.
And I can see when you're involved in whatever that space is. In your case, it's the arts. Sometimes for us, we go to the arts for relaxation.
Right,
That's how we get away from something. We're going to go to the theater or a musical performance, whatever it may be. You're immersed in it 24/7. How do you get away for a minute? What does relaxation look like for you?
Well, I don't know if getting away from it is actually, because being type A, I think about it all the time. I wake up in the middle of the night and write emails in my head. But I have a family. I've got 3 children and 2 grandchildren, hopefully another one coming soon.
Good for you.
And getting older, I'm in Pilates, so I love doing that. But I'm a musical theater fanatic, and it's all thanks to my parents who started going to Music Circus back in the 60s.
Sure, yep.
And so I have season tickets to Broadway Sacramento and Broadway Music Circus, and then also Cap Stage, and then traveling. Love culture and art museums, and it still has to do with arts and music.
I went to my first performance at Cap Stage 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
It was fabulous. And Michael Stevenson has been in the
He's
studio.
So good.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was wonderful. We had 5 of the performing arts theaters.
Yeah.
Executive directors come in.
Oh, good.
And it was just amazing to hear their stories.
Oh, yes.
And their engagement. And the beautiful thing about it is not unlike you, they are tangent to what you're doing because they're touching students all the time
all
too.
the time.
Whether it be at the grammar school level through
Right.
tours and plays,
Yeah.
or in the high schools all the way to the collegiate level. So that infrastructure exists.
It does.
It's here.
It's all feeding it into each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I always, with Cap Stage, I've been a season ticket holder for a number of years, and their plays, the choice of plays is intentional.
Oh, yeah.
So, you get more of the fun, interesting things with the musicals, and then you go to Cap Stage and your brain is engaged a lot.
You're leaving thinking and talking.
Oh, yes. Marinating. Yes, definitely.
Again, back to the value of what the arts allow us to do. And those students today who are young grammar school students, without that exposure, there'll be no comprehension of that as they grow up.
No. And, I've even just seen that with my own grandkids, that they're now teenagers and they didn't have that much arts or music on a regular basis. So by the time they get to high school, they're dragging their feet to take an art class that's required. And then you think about the current generation of credentialed teachers probably grew up without arts and music as well. So they don't know what they don't know, or their comfort level isn't there to say, I can be silly and, sing a song or play the recorder and be silly with my students, and that's okay.
Because they don't know.
Exactly.
And sadly, that is perpetuating.
Yes.
And if you don't expose anybody to it, they're never
right.
going to be able to educate.
Those of us in the older generation, I think, take it for granted.
Yes. Yeah, we make the assumption, well, of course, everybody's been to concerts and performances and whether it be theater or a gallery or something.
Yes.
And even hearing this as I'm reflecting on the conversation we're having, I'm thinking about my kids. Not so much. I mean, we did it with them. That's how they were exposed. But in the school system, not so much.
No. And then it doesn't become part of their habit as consumers.
And for me, I feel that's such a loss. It's such a loss. They don't get to experience.
Because it develops a whole different sense of who you are.
Exactly right.
Yes.
So if somebody wants to learn more about the organization, what's the best way to engage?
friendsofsacramentoarts.org is our website. We also are on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. They can follow us on that. They can be added to our e-newsletter, that they can get updates on what we're doing, how to be engaged, what's the call to action that they as individuals, besides donating, but that they in their community can be a part of. And March is Arts Education Month. So that's why our event is always in March at the Sophia. And so to take a look on our website if they would like to come and celebrate art and music teachers with us in March.
And we will be sure to have the website linked in the show notes. So it's easy. Somebody just has to go and click. They don't have to remember Friends of Sacramento Arts.
And
I keep wanting to put a "the" in there, and I know it's not there.
It's not there. Well, and also we do have a donate link on our website and a monthly donation option. So if folks want to donate $20 or $50 a month, that all goes to help us fulfill our mission of arts every day for every child in every school.
I love it. Allison, thank you for the tireless work you're doing. And I mean you, because you are the founder of this thing and taking it into the community that ensures our arts, our music education aren't just optional, but they're essential for every student. As we talked about, your leadership, your advocacy, they're really helping shape a more creative, equitable future for our next generation. And we are grateful for the impact you and your half team.
And the board.
And the board for sure.
Yes.
Which is an impressive board, by the way.
Thank you.
What you're doing in getting art education into the schools is Herculean.
It is.
We so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. It's been delightful.
Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. We hope today's episode inspired you and gave you a deeper look into the work of our local nonprofits. If you believe in our mission to amplify their voices, please take a moment to leave us a positive review and share this episode with a friend. It helps more people discover the incredible work happening in our community. And don't miss future episodes. Subscribe to our weekly updates and monthly newsletter at nonprofpod.com. And if you're part of a nonprofit that would like to be featured, we'd love to hear from you. Just visit the Guests tab on our website. The Nonprofit Podcast Network is recorded and produced at Hear Me Now Studio with generous support from our outstanding partners. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations. Online at captrust.com. Western Health Advantage, local care with community impact. Find the plan that fits at westernhealth.com. CORE, executive leadership and comprehensive support services. Visit cxore.com. And 5 Star Bank, a local trusted advisor to community nonprofits for over 25 years. 5starbank.com.